Hey guys, so today I want to show you my newest watch, the Timex Q. Now I've been eyeing this watch up for a while and I finally pulled the trigger, so I want to make a video about it and talk about the history and some other things about it. So, roll intro. And let's get started. So yes, I am making a video about a Timex watch. This is the same Timex that you can find in Walmart and Target. Why am I making a video about a watch from this brand? Well, it's a really interesting reissue watch of a watch from 1979, the Timex Q Diver. We'll talk more about the history of this watch, but I've mentioned in the past that I am assembling what I call the unholy trinity of watches, and that's going to be my Casio, my Moonswatch, and my Timex Q. All three of these watches took the entire watch world by storm, and the Omega actually took the entire world by storm. Now, two of them are much easier to find, easier to get your hands on, the Casio and the Timex Q. You can just order them online. The Omega is still very hard to get your hands on, and I personally had to wait months to get one at retail. You can buy one at 2 to 3 or 4 times retail online on places like StockX or eBay, but there's a lot of fakes floating around and I really don't suggest that. This video isn't about the Omega, this is about the Timex. Now, the Casio is the absolute easiest to get your hands on right now. You can walk into any department store and buy it, although you cannot buy the case that I put on it anywhere but online. The Timex Q, it's not really sold in stores very much. I haven't seen it at any department stores where you would see the Easy Reader or the Weekender, but all of them are available online for order as far as the regular original Timex Q line goes. They did develop further ones later on, like the Timex Q GMT, which is not available for order because they sold out. But anyway, the unholy trinity is finally complete. Now, before I show you the watch, I just want to give a little bit of context. So in the beginning of watchmaking, there were only mechanical movements. And the way that worked is that there was a wheel that would move back and forth, and that would move a bunch of other wheels and gears, which would move the hands, and that would happen at a certain rate, which caused you to be able to keep accurate time. Now, I say accurate, it wasn't the most accurate, but it did the job as long as you kept an eye on it and set the time again every once in a while. Now, this wheel needed power to keep it moving, so the way you would do that is that you would wind the crown, which would wind a spring inside the watch. As that spring would uncoil, it would release energy, which would start the wheel moving. That spring is called a mainspring. So when you were winding it with a crown, that's called hand winding. Now later on, a new technology was introduced, where there would be a small pendulum or a rotor inside the watch that would swirl around as you moved your wrist, and that would cause the mainspring to coil back up, allowing you to have more of a charge on your watch. So that's called an automatic watch, and that's where all watchmaking was until 1969. Now in 1969, Seiko introduced the Seiko Astron. A bunch of companies were working on making what is called a quartz watch, and Seiko is the first to bring it to market. Now a quartz watch uses a quartz crystal, an electronic oscillator, and a battery, rather than all of the mechanical pieces to keep the watch powered and accurate. And because it is using those pieces that are much more regulated and can keep the beat no matter what, then you're getting much more accurate watches. Whereas with automatic or hand-winding watches, every time you move your wrist or set your watch down, differences in gravitational pull would cause the beat to be a little bit off. Now, soon after this, quartz movements overtook mechanical movements, and this is what was called the quartz crisis in the 1970s. That was when Swiss watchmaking started to die off because a lot of the Swiss brands that were smaller could not compete with the larger Japanese brands like Seiko, Casio, and Citizen, who all had large companies and were producing large amounts of quartz watches. So a lot of different Swiss companies died off. Some of them have been brought back to life by different other manufacturers, but most of them no longer exist. Some of the bigger ones stuck around, like Rolex, Patek Philippe, Audemars Piguet. A lot of them did make quartz watches at the time to try to compete, although most of them either no longer make quartz watches, or if they do make a quartz watch, it is the cheapest watch in their collection. Now, while all this was going on in Switzerland and Japan, The US had its own watchmakers, and one of those was Timex. Now, Timex have been known since the 1800s for producing durable yet affordable watches. And one of their slogans actually was, takes a lickin' and keeps on ticking. And that's actually a really famous one of their taglines. Now, Timex was mainly producing mechanical watches just like everybody else until the quartz crisis, and just like everybody else, they were forced to try to adapt. They did try to get into other verticals like computers, and they actually had to lay off some of their workers because they lost a lot of contracts at the time. But in the 1980s, they pivoted back and went back to producing only watches. In 1979, they produced a Timex Q diver, which was a quartz diver watch. And that is what the Timex Q reissue is based on. But after that, they made the Timex Ironman series, which was really well received for a sports watch that anybody could really pick up and afford. And they also made waves with the Indiglow feature, which would light up your entire display. And that feature still remains on most of their department store watches today. Now, in modern times, Timex had a reputation of being a cheap department store watch, and they were not cool watches at all. And that was until 2019 when they decided to reissue the Timex Q. As soon as the Timex Q was released, it was sold out everywhere. They only had one colorway initially, but they've introduced many colorways since then, and it is becoming a really popular yet affordable watch for people who want to have something interesting and vintage looking on their wrist, but not pay an arm and a leg for. Since then, Timex has introduced multiple other versions of the Q, which all kind of relate to different time periods from the 60s on. As well, they have made an automatic version, the M79, and there's even a GMT version that I mentioned earlier, which is very hard to get your hands on right now. So that's a little bit of history to give context to what this watch is. Now, how I ended up getting it was that I got an email towards the middle of July telling me that there was going to be a 50% off sale online for the end of summer. And I immediately went on to see if any of the Qs were on there. And there were. It was a rose gold with a root beer bezel and a gold tone with a blue bezel. Now, personally, I don't really like gold watches. I've had one gold watch in the past, and although it had a really beautiful sunburst dial, I could not get with the gold on the case and reading. So I decided not to buy one, but it really got me thinking about when I was going to get my hands on a Q finally. I watched a bunch of reviews and kept looking back to see if they would add anything else. And over time, I really did start to fall in love with the rose gold and root beer version. And when I did fall in love with it, I went and checked, and it was sold out. So, having only gold as the option at that point, I decided to sit on it, and I didn't buy one. And I actually checked every single day to see if the rose gold one would come back into stock, but it didn't. And in checking every single day, I started to think maybe I could get on board with the gold one. Worst case scenario, I could sell it at a very tiny bit of a loss on eBay as brand new in box. So I made up my mind and decided to buy the gold one. And then it sold out too. Now I was getting towards the very end of summer here, and I got another email saying that there would be an additional 20% off, which coincided with the gold one selling out, of course. I still checked every day, and one day when I checked, it said one left in stock. Now, I don't know if they ever actually ran out or if that was just them tracking my browser cookies and seeing that I was checking every day and deciding to kind of make a play at getting me to buy one by saying, oh, there's only one left, even though there were more than that. But whatever it was, it worked, and I immediately bought it. Now, when it arrived and I put it on my wrist for the first time, all of my doubts about the gold fell away. I am a different person than I was 6 years ago when I first got a gold watch, and honestly, this one's okay. It is a seriously cool watch to own, and I love the vintage stylings, I love what it represents, and it really finished off that collection that I had been talking about and trying to build a little bit. In addition, it has the old school bubble crystal or top hat crystal. It is an acrylic crystal, which is great because if I scratch it, then I can just buff it out with toothpaste. And it's not too big, it wears well on really most wrists, even though it's a smaller, under 40mm diameter. It does have a larger lug to lug, so it kind of wears like a 41mm watch. It does have a clickless bi-directional bezel, which isn't the best, but it's fine, I guess. Other things that might be wrong with this watch are that it is not a true diver, and I would not take this underwater. It does not have a great depth rating. And the bracelet is really, really bad with pulling hair. Now, I don't really have hairy wrists, and all of the reviews I watched said it pulled hair, but I thought I might be able to get away with it, and I was mistaken. Now, if I wear it kind of high up and tight on my wrist, then it will move, it will pull the hair. But a slight knock that pushes it downwards on my wrist is going to cause it to pull some of my hair and give me a little bit of pain. Timex does have a regular oyster-style bracelet for this watch, as well as a silicone bracelet, but the oyster does not come in gold yet, and the silicone and the oyster just really don't have that vintage look that the band has as it stands. So I'm probably just going to put up with that little bit of pain for the looks. Now, all in all, I am really happy with this watch, but is this the end of watch collecting for me? Absolutely not. I actually have a watch that is on the way, and I might talk about that in another video. And I'll give a little bit of a hint. This is going to return me to my roots of Seiko modding, and maybe I'll even show off the one Seiko mod that I have left. I've done 4, I think I mentioned that before, but I sold off 3 of them and I just have 1 of them left. But I'm really interested to see where that watch can go. So that's everything I wanted to talk about in this video. If you enjoyed it, please like, share, and subscribe. If you have any comments, questions, or suggestions, leave them down in the comment section below, and I'll be happy to answer them as quickly as I can. All right, have a great one.